not only are you trying to just fill a closing void, but you're trying to fill the Edwin Diaz void. He's not just a closing pitcher. Everyone keeps saying Edwin Diaz, it's not going to hurt because he's not an everyday player. Well, one, he is an everyday player, basically. And like I said on my last show, he's a Band-Aid. He's not just a closing pitcher. Guys like Jacob deGrom a couple years ago with the Mets, he didn't have as many wins as he should because the Mets didn't have a reliable closing pitcher. If Jacob deGrom had 5 wins in a couple of starts this year because we had a reliable bullpen. He was getting wins this year when he pitched because we had that reliable bullpen to lock it down at the end of games for him. That's why we went out there and we signed guys like Verlander and Scherzer, and we get Kodai Senga, and we brought in Jose Quintana. Unfortunately, got hurt because we have a bullpen, and the main piece in that bullpen, the glue, the starting point, the core, was Edwin Diaz. Edwin Diaz was the best pitcher on the Mets. In my opinion, he's the most important piece of our pitching rotation. Because like I said, Verlander and Scherzer, as the last caller mentioned, my pops, he said they're not getting any younger. Do we expect Verlander and Scherzer to go 7 innings every start, every 5 days? So when the bullpen can only go 2-3 innings, and we're in a big spot, we're in a crunch spot for a Verlander or Scherzer start against the Atlanta Braves, and they're 2nd and 3rd in the 8th inning with 1 out. Now we're going to have to roll with David Robertson or Adam Ottavino. Now one of those guys are going to be facing Dansby Swanson with the runners on 2nd and 3rd, rather than bringing in an Edwin Diaz, who's going to, he's going to shut it down. He's going to get out of it. That's where the Mets are going to miss Edwin Diaz. Yeah, I get it. He's a closing pitcher. They pitch 1 inning a night. No, Edwin Diaz pitches multiple innings a night if he has to. He doesn't even care if it's just the 9th inning. He will go in the most important spot because he wasn't just a closing pitcher. He was the best Mets pitcher. We had 101 wins last year. When we won the division in 2015, we had Jeurys Familia, right? He was a really good closer. Really good closer. But you know what he wasn't? Edwin Diaz. You know how many games the Mets won? 90. You give the Mets an Edwin Diaz in 2015, they win the World Series. All I'm saying is, closers, are they important? No, they are not. They're easily replaceable. Yes, 100%. Closing pitchers in baseball are very replaceable. But there's only so many closers that impact the game the way an Edwin Diaz does, the way a Mariano Rivera does. Am I comparing him to Mariano Rivera right now? Yeah, I am. Because last year, what we saw from Edwin Diaz was historic. It was the best closing pitching season a New York Met has ever put together, I can tell you that. It's right up there with Mariano Rivera's best seasons. And he was that same guy all last year over the second half of 2021. He was that same guy last year that he was in 2020 in the COVID year. So for the last 3 years, we've seen Diaz be relatively the best closer in baseball. Undoubtedly. So that's a major part of this team that we're losing. The Mets are losing a huge part of their team that